Hello and welcome to a new video of Skolera training with the admin interface. In today's interface, we're going to talk about, or today's session, we're going to talk about a particular feature. It's short and sweet. We'll just give you an idea of what it is. It's mostly handled usually by our Skolera support team, but we'll give you an insight of how this works. This deals with permission management. Basically, who is allowed to do what. This is set up in two different ways. We have the permissions in themselves. There is a list of permissions that users can and cannot do. Under communication, for example, you have multiple ways of communication, and each one of these has different levels. So in some things, he can only view, others can only create, others can edit existing data, and specific ones can also delete some of these records and so on. These permissions are either granted to users or to groups of users. I can grant the permission to one user, or I can grant the permission to multiple users through the groups in there. If you click on this, it will actually show you this is the view permission. Here, this is the edit permission, the create permission, and the delete permission for this particular feature right there. Now, the features, of course, will differ. Some of them include import and export. Some of them do not include delete, things that you cannot even delete. They are built in and hard-coded into the system, and so on. So that's basically the list of the permissions themselves for each of the main features. Now the other part is the permission groups. Now by default in Skolera we have 5 main permission groups: teachers, HODs, students, parents, and Skolera admins. These are given by default the permissions they need to do their work. You can, however, limit some of these permissions. Okay, so if you don't want teachers to do something in particular, you can disable it from the teachers. For example, I do not want teachers to delete the course planner. So you can actually go to the settings of the course planner and disable the delete feature for teachers. In this case, they will be able to create, edit, but they will not view, of course, but they will not be able to delete the course planner, and so on. The other way is by creating new groups. And to do that, you just create the permission group, give it a name for the group, give it a description, and start adding members to this group. Let's say you will call this group A. Give it a description if you want. The description is not mandatory, but if you want to give it a description, and you can start adding users to it. Okay, I want to add this user, and I want to add this user, and so on. You can add as many users as you want, and then you can decide what permissions this group will receive. You can give them the full permissions on communication, or you can narrow it down to going into school announcements, but they can only view school announcements. They cannot create the school announcements, they cannot edit or delete the school announcements, and so on. Messages to students, you might want to give them the full permission on messages, if you want to, or all permissions except delete, okay, and so on. Once you've set all of this up, you can then finally save. The group will be created with those users added into it with the particular permissions that we have granted them. Now, do remember that Skolera most of the time reserves this feature so that we will do it on your behalf, because a lot of these features and a lot of the permissions in here, some permissions are mandatory to avoid errors. You cannot, for example, give someone the permission to create quizzes when you don't give them the permission to even view the courses. Okay, so a lot of these permissions are linked together. Because it's complicated and because there is thousands basically of permissions and permission levels, we at Skolera will help you set this up based on school requirements and based on the roles that each of these users do. Thank you for joining us in today's video, and we hope to see you in future videos with Skolera.